Before we get on with the podcast, I'd like to mention that I now have 3 books for sale on Kindle. Recommended Reading for the True Conservative, Bad Democrat, and now Evil Liberal. All available for $3.99 or through Kindle Unlimited. Now, on with the podcast.
My best friend met his wife when they were sniffing glue in the park. And she's here tonight. I would say yoo-hoo, but that seems inappropriate. Were you just really identifying with that setup, or was it about you? All right, let's leave that. Ironically, your lips are sealed.
Good morning. It's Friday, Fight Song Friday, June the 26th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and fight song. All that and more when I get back. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
Welcome back. 30 minutes before the opening bell on Wall Street on a Friday. Dow Industrials down 91, the S&P down 39, and the Nasdaq lower by 406. That is the lows of the morning on the Nasdaq as investors rotate out of big tech. Oil prices continue to fall. Take a look. They're down 3.5% right now at $69.39. Interest rates this morning look like this on the 10-year, flat showing this morning after a spike recently. Have a great day, everybody, and have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you tonight and on Sunday. Varney and Company takes it up now. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. First came the news that the Iranians had attacked a cargo ship in the Gulf. That shut down the strait, and the price of oil went back above $70. Then came news that the vast Saudi oil terminal, Ras Tanura, had reopened after a 4-month closure. That suggests that a lot more oil could soon be flowing to the world's markets. The Saudis are loading 2 very large crude carriers. Each holds 2 million barrels of oil. So here's the price of oil as of right now. You're at $69.58. Have a look at the price of gasoline. It's coming down ever so slowly. We have regular down just 1 cent at $3.90. California's down a couple of cents at $5.48 for regular, and diesel also down a couple of cents. You're at $4.93 right now. On the stock market, though, I've got to tell you this: the tech sell-off continues. Dow Industrials down 120, but look at the Nasdaq, down over 400 points. That's the best part of 1.5%. Let me see Apple. It led Thursday's rout. It is reportedly looking for another source of chips. They could turn to Chinese memory makers, and I'm going to check that stock for you a little later. There we go. It's back up just $1.28 right now. It was down a lot more than that yesterday. All right, let's have a look at the other markets. Bitcoin coming in now at $59,000. The 10-year Treasury, I believe, is below 440. That's right at 440. We have the 2-year just above 4%, 410, 410 actually. And on the show today, we've got a civil war among Democrats. Their leadership rattled by the success of socialist candidates. Democrat Senator Elisha Slotkin has openly called for new leaders. The far left is targeting Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and DNC chair Ken Martin. 2 very bad ideas are moving forward. In California, the 5% wealth seizure will be on the November ballot. It's popular. That measure received double the signatures required to get it on the ballot. In New York, Mayor Mandani thinks he's won a victory. The rent board, packed with his appointees, has approved a rent freeze. 40% of the apartments in the city will be affected. Landlords want to know who's going to pay for the sharp increases in maintenance costs, fuel, and insurance. Real drama in Europe, and this is about the weather. The heat wave continues. It'll reach 99 degrees in Paris today. This past week, France hit an all-time record high, 111 degrees. A massive pride rally had been planned for tomorrow in Paris. The authorities said they're looking to reschedule it to September. And then there's the World Cup. Sad to say, Team USA lost to Turkey A, but they'll still go through to the knockout stage. The big game today will be Norway versus France. That will bring together 2 of the world's great goal scorers. Erling Haaland from Norway, Kylian Mbappe from France, 3 p.m. Eastern. That's the kickoff, and it's going to be on Fox. Friday, June 26th, 2026.
And that was Varney and Company, non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. They may beg, they may disappear, but in every case, they're reacting to the loss of power, not to the loss of you. And that's a painful truth that the true conservative eventually comes to terms with. The bad Democrat never respected them. They needed the supply, the attention, the reflection. And so the conservative stops being the mirror. They start being a person again, with edges, with limits, with sovereignty. They stop explaining themselves to people committed to misunderstanding them. They stop justifying their boundaries to people who never respected their absence. In doing so, they begin to reclaim their life. It doesn't happen all at once, it's a process. But each act of self-respect becomes a brick in the foundation of a new identity, one rooted not in overgiving, but in balance, not in fear, but in clarity, not in rescuing others, but in rescuing themselves. Here's a hard truth. The bad Democrat thrives on emotional reactions. They need them almost like they need air. It doesn't matter if the emotion you're offering is love, hatred, anger, or fear, as long as it's intense. As long as it's a reaction that places them at the center of your emotional world. They'll take it. They thrive on the drama. They feed on it. It's how they validate their sense of self. It's their supply. Without it, they feel invisible, irrelevant, empty. So, they create chaos, they provoke, they manipulate. They'll push every button they can. Fine, because each emotional reaction, no matter how negative, is a form of confirmation. They don't care if you're furious or adoring. They just need something. They need you to engage. And this is where the true conservative begins to learn something profound. After enough cycles of emotional exhaustion, after enough heartbreak, after doing enough of that toxic dance, the true conservative learns how not to feed the fire. It's a subtle shift, but it's the most powerful weapon in the conservative's arsenal. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Dr. Berg.
How to stop ringing in your ears, and I want you to do this for 7 days. So many people ask the question, will this ringing ever go away? Is it permanent? Is there anything I can do? Because they go to the doctor, and the doctor will say that we don't know what causes it. Today I'm going to show you something very important, something very valuable that the doctors won't tell you. Ringing in the ears, tinnitus, is not coming from your ear or the inside of the ear. Now, it is absolutely true that ringing in the ears can come from loud noises in the past, from a concert, from some noisy job you had. It can come from side effects from medication. But the question is, what if you really haven't taken any of those medications? You haven't been exposed to a lot of loud noises in the past. Then what? Well, check this out. As I was reading some of these comments in my past videos, there were several things that kept coming up over and over and over. One person wrote, I've had tinnitus for about 3 years. After 2 weeks of doing intermittent fasting for 17 hours and then having a 7-hour eating window and going on low carb, my ringing in the ears is almost gone. Here's another one. I had tinnitus for 8 years. I tried everything, naturopathy, acupuncture. Nothing worked until I went on keto. I started 5 days ago and my ringing in the ears is almost gone. Here's another one 1 year ago. Carnivore diet, 97% meat, salt, and water. My ringing in the ears went away. Here's another one. I definitely noticed worse tinnitus when eating sugar and caffeine. So this guided me into diving into a different line of research. But I wanted to know, what is the relationship between blood sugar and insulin and the nervous system in the inner ear? First thing you need to know is when someone gets a hearing test, they can tell you that everything is normal when it's actually not normal. And here's why. A standard hearing test pretty much checks for one thing. Can you hear a beep? But there are parts of your hearing that never get tested. So you can actually pass the hearing test with actual hearing loss. So if you actually do get a hearing test, ask for the high frequency test and a speech in noise test. So now let's get into what I mentioned before, where the problem is. The problem, that ringing is not coming from the inside of your ear. It's actually coming from your brain. When someone actually loses hearing, they lose it at a very specific pitch. Your brain is producing a sound to make up for some lost note. And it's turning up the volume, the amplifier. So now let's shift to what causes this problem. If we take a look at the different medications, loud sounds, maybe a virus, an infection, chemotherapy, all of these things, they do the same thing. They damage the nerves inside the ear. But out of all the causes, and hang with me because I really want you to get this, chronic blood sugar elevation slowly chokes off the tiny little blood vessels that feed the delicate nerves in the inner ear. Now stay with me because what I'm going to say also relates to a diabetic situation called peripheral neuropathy. The nerves that extend heart, down to your feet, tingling, numbness, etc. Well, guess what? The nerves in the inner ear are also peripheral nerves. The same wiring that goes into the feet also extends up into the inner ear. So many people can get away from high blood glucose for so many years because there's something underneath it. It's called insulin. Insulin will suck out the blood glucose as fast as you put it in there. And so many people have normal blood glucose for 10, 15, 20, 25 years before they get any symptoms. And the reason is because this insulin behind it is working so hard. Too much insulin directly destroys the nervous system. But in that process, insulin resistance starts to shut down the fuel to the nervous system, especially in the peripheral nerves. And what's really unique about the nerves in the inner ear right here is they're super hungry for fuel. So when you have blood sugar issues, the tiny nerves, especially in the peripheral part of the body, become very overactive. There's studies that go back to 2004 that found that between 84 to 90% of people with unexplained ringing in the ear had higher amounts of insulin. Another paper found as many as 82% of tinnitus patients had a pre-diabetic blood sugar problem. Another paper involving over 2 million people found that diabetics are significantly more likely to have ringing in the ears than non-diabetics. This was a study in 2025, and they followed thousands of people. The more sugary drinks that they consumed correlated to a higher risk of ringing in the ear. And this is why when they start doing fasting, they're going to start lowering insulin. And in the comments, people are saying this is what helped them. If you've been to the doctor or you go to the doctor and they're focused on blood glucose, always make sure they test a fasting insulin level. Personally, I would not let my insulin levels get above 7. I want them down to like 5. And the reason I'm bringing this up is if you go to the doctor and they say, yeah, everything we tested was normal, and they tested your insulin and it was like 22, well, don't buy it because that's not normal. And this is why fasting works. This is why cutting out a lot of these carbs works, because it's going to start reducing that fasting insulin. As soon as you start lowering blood glucose, what's going to happen is you're going to give more fuel supply to those tiny vessels, to the nervous system in the inner ear. And this is why I really don't think hearing loss is just a mineral deficiency or a vitamin deficiency. That's part of it. But there's a much bigger metabolic problem behind it that needs to be addressed. But that being said, there are 2 nutrients that can help you. The first one is alpha-lipoic acid. It's a very, very powerful antioxidant. It mops up rust in your body. And also found in one study, 600 milligrams a day for 2 months significantly cut down the ringing in the ear. Now, the other nutrient that I would recommend is benfotiamine. And I use this for decades for a condition called peripheral neuropathy, and it works really good. But if a person doesn't also change their diet, it doesn't really work that well. It'll work a little bit, but then it comes right back. So it's really a combination of getting rid of the root cause and then using these 2 nutrients to really heal the nervous system. As far as how much benfotiamine to use, I would recommend whatever it says in the bottle, I would times 4. So I would take 1 4 times a day and spread it through the day. And then I would take about 600 milligrams of alpha-lipoic acid to help you start reducing this ringing in the ear. Now, depending on how severe you have it or how long you've had it, is going to determine how long it's going to take to start feeling changes. Because if there's extensive damage in the ear, it doesn't go away overnight. So you're going to have to give it time. But that being said, I think the majority of the population should start seeing results within 7 days. So what I want you to do right now is to rate on a scale from 1 to 10 how intense this ringing in the ear is, okay? And then just document it. And then each day re-rate it for 7 days so you can visually see it coming down. But if you don't see results within 7 days, don't give up. Give it more time.
And that was Dr. Berg. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
We're in a society right now that being lazy is okay. When you decide to rise, giving the extra, working hard, being the elite, there's going to be conflict. People are going to hate it. When you decide to go to the next level and everybody else is sitting on the bench, It pisses all the people off that ain't doing nothing with their life because they don't value their time. They're wasting it.
Accept the fact that you're going to be different. You're going to be criticized. You're going to have haters. But not only that, you're going to feel very alone oftentimes on the journey. And you're not going to feel like a lot of people understand you. And it's making a decision up front that I'm okay with not being like everyone else. I'm okay with not being part of the pack. That I want to be different. I want to stand out.
Why can't you be satisfied? Why do you always got to get things so perfect? Why you spend so much time here? If people think you're crazy, take it as a compliment. Thank you so much. Same people. They don't change the world. If they do think you're crazy, and they do think you're unrealistic, and they do think you're nuts, that's a great thing, because that means that you're thinking far bigger than any of the people around you, and that is always a good thing if you follow it up with action. So when they say these things, use them to your advantage. Use them as a reinforcement of the fact that you were on the right path. And I know it doesn't feel that way all the time, but I promise you that's what it means. When people don't understand you anymore, you're in that spot of obsession and drive.
Crazy means that you have the ability to see things that other people can't. Anybody that's done something great, they don't think like anybody else. They can't.
Everyone's going to think you're nuts. You're going to arrive at that time. But let me tell you something. If you want to build something real high and real special, the foundation has to go real deep. Most people can't tolerate the deep phase.
People give themselves an excuse all the time when they say he's built different. Well, if you mean he gets up earlier, he stays later, he asks questions, he's humble, he works really hard when no one's around, then yeah, he's built different. You wake up earlier than people, you stay later than people, you ask questions, you stay humble, you work harder than anyone when no one's there. I guarantee someone that feels bad about themselves soon will label you as he's built different. He's built different should be your label because people feel bad about themselves.
You are going to be called crazy. You're going to be called unrealistic. You're going to be questioned. You're going to be having your friends put doubt in your mind. You're going to have people say like, well, are you sure about that? These people don't get it. They do not understand what it takes. They do not understand what you were trying to do. They do not understand why you were trying to do it. And for that reason, you have to ignore them. You have to learn to turn the volume down on these people by limiting your access to them and then also continuing to execute. So you do not hear the naysayers. You do not hear the hate. You do not hear the laughter. You do not hear the doubt. And you can focus on becoming exactly who you want to become. And eventually, when you've gone on and you've created everything that you want to create, you will not be able to hear these people laugh because they'll be in the same spot where you started and you will be 100 miles down the road.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Ukraine.
April 18th, 2026. A Russian assault force moved toward Ukrainian positions expecting another difficult battle. Instead, something happened that has become increasingly common across the front. Vehicles stopped moving. Soldiers scattered. Entire plans began to unravel before the attack had truly begun. What makes this story remarkable is not that equipment was lost. Wars have always destroyed equipment. What makes it remarkable is how quickly it happened, how often it is happening, and how difficult it has become to stop. Across hundreds of miles of battlefield, a new pattern is emerging. Military planners from Washington to Moscow are paying close attention because the lessons may extend far beyond Ukraine. Before we begin, subscribe to Military Force for more battlefield analysis and military reporting from the world's most important conflicts. To understand why this matters, we first need to understand what is actually happening across the front every single day. Modern armies survive because they can move. They move soldiers to the front, ammunition to firing positions, fuel to vehicles, food to troops, and reinforcements to sectors under pressure. Once that movement begins to break down, even the strongest military starts losing options. Across Ukraine's front line, that is exactly what Ukrainian drone operators are trying to achieve. Their mission is no longer limited to destroying individual targets. Increasingly, it is about making normal military movement so dangerous that Russian units struggle to operate at all. This reality appeared again and again in footage released by Ukrainian drone units during late April and early May 2026. The targets varied, but the pattern remained remarkably consistent. 2 Russian soldiers crossing a road were detected and struck. A vehicle transporting personnel was located before reaching its destination. A shelter that appeared safe from ground observation was identified from above and hit with precision. In another case, a hidden depot containing equipment and drones was discovered under forest cover and destroyed shortly afterward. These incidents occurred in different locations, yet they all pointed toward the same operational goal. Ukraine is attacking the systems that keep Russian forces moving. That distinction matters. Throughout military history, commanders have usually focused on destroying enemy combat power directly. Tanks fought tanks. Artillery targeted concentrations of troops. Aircraft attacked major military facilities. What is emerging across Ukraine is something different. Drone units are increasingly hunting the connections between battlefield elements. They are targeting the roads, routes, supply chains, and support networks that allow military formations to function from day to day. The result is a battlefield where even routine activity carries risk. A soldier moving from one position to another may be observed. A truck delivering supplies can be tracked from the air. A group resting inside what appears to be a secure location may already be visible through thermal sensors. In many sectors, the danger no longer begins at the front line. It begins the moment movement starts. This is where the idea of the drone wall becomes important. Unlike a traditional defensive line built from trenches, minefields, and barriers, a drone wall has no physical shape. It exists through constant observation. Hundreds of small aircraft search roads, tree lines, fields, villages, and supply routes. Some are looking for armored vehicles. Others are searching for infantry. Still others are hunting logistics targets. Together they create an environment where Russian units must assume they are being watched almost all the time. Military analysts often describe warfare in terms of firepower. Yet what Ukraine is demonstrating is that observation can be just as powerful. A target cannot be destroyed until it is found. FPV drones and reconnaissance systems are helping Ukrainian forces find targets faster, more frequently, and across a wider area than many armies expected only a few years ago. The psychological impact may be just as important as the physical damage. Imagine being a soldier moving toward the front. You are not under artillery fire. No enemy troops are visible. The road appears clear. Yet at any moment, a drone operator several miles away may already be tracking your movement through a video feed. The threat is constant, but often invisible. That uncertainty creates stress, slows decision-making, and forces units to spend valuable time searching for dangers they cannot always see. The footage from recent months shows that vulnerability extends far beyond armored formations. Infantry crossing open ground have been targeted. Personnel attempting to hide inside shelters have been discovered. Supply vehicles approaching combat zones have been intercepted before unloading their cargo. Equipment stockpiles hidden beneath trees have been located despite camouflage efforts. The message is becoming increasingly clear. Mobility itself is under attack. This development is gradually expanding the meaning of the front line. In previous wars, danger was concentrated around areas where opposing forces directly faced one another. Today, threats can appear many miles behind those positions. Roads, supply hubs, temporary rest areas, and transportation corridors are becoming part of the battlefield. Areas once considered relatively secure now require constant caution. For Ukraine, this approach offers an important advantage. FPV drones costing only a few $100s can force Russia to commit far greater resources to protection, concealment, and countermeasures. Even when a strike does not destroy a major asset, it can delay movement, disrupt planning, and complicate operations. Over time, those disruptions accumulate. And as Russian commanders continue searching for ways to move forces safely across the battlefield, another trend is becoming increasingly visible. Ukraine is not simply stopping assaults. It is learning how to dismantle them piece by piece. One of the most important changes on Ukraine's battlefield is not simply that Russian vehicles are being destroyed. It is the way they are being destroyed. Increasingly, Ukrainian drone operators are not attacking targets at random. They are selecting them in a deliberate sequence designed to break apart an entire assault force. The goal is not just to destroy equipment. The goal is to collapse the attack itself. A clear example appeared on April 18, 2026, when Russian forces launched a mechanized assault toward Ukrainian positions. This was not a small reconnaissance mission or a limited probe. Multiple armored vehicles, troop carriers, and supporting elements moved forward as part of a coordinated operation. Under normal circumstances, such formations are designed to deliver infantry safely toward combat positions while maintaining momentum. But before the force could reach its objective, Ukrainian drone teams identified the convoy and began a carefully organized strike campaign. The first targets were not the easiest vehicles to hit. They were the most important. Ukrainian operators focused on armored vehicles at the front of the formation. These machines provided more than physical protection. They gave the advancing troops confidence. Soldiers moving behind armored support often feel protected from small arms fire and artillery fragments. Commanders rely on those vehicles to maintain formation and push through difficult terrain. Once the lead elements began burning, that sense of security disappeared almost immediately. The destruction of armored vehicles creates effects that go far beyond the loss of metal and machinery. Drivers behind them suddenly face uncertainty. Radio traffic increases. Units begin asking for new instructions. Momentum slows. What started as an organized advance quickly becomes a collection of separate groups trying to understand what is happening around them. That confusion opens the door for the second phase. Once the armored shield begins to collapse, transport vehicles become far more vulnerable. Ukrainian drone operators frequently shift their attention toward troop carriers, trucks, and lighter vehicles carrying personnel. These targets may not appear as valuable as tanks at first glance, but they often determine whether an assault can continue. When transport assets are destroyed, infantry lose mobility. Troops become separated from supporting units. Commanders struggle to reposition forces. Entire sections of an attack can become stranded in exposed terrain. The effects often spread faster than many people realize. A disabled vehicle can block a narrow road. A blocked road can stop the movement of units behind it. Delayed units may miss their planned assault window. Supporting elements arrive late or fail to arrive altogether. Within minutes, a single successful strike can begin affecting decisions across a much larger area. This is where drone warfare starts to look very different from traditional anti-armor operations. For decades, anti-tank warfare focused on destroying individual vehicles. Success was often measured by how many tanks were knocked out during a battle. Ukraine's drone units are increasingly measuring success differently. Instead of focusing only on destruction, they focus on disruption. Their objective is to create a chain reaction that spreads through the entire attacking force. Once movement slows and formations become fragmented, the third phase begins. Remaining vehicles become easier to isolate. Exposed personnel lose cover. Small groups attempting to reorganize are easier to track from the air. Additional strikes target whatever remains capable of restoring momentum. At this stage, the original assault often bears little resemblance to the organized operation that started the advance. What makes this approach remarkable is the level of battlefield awareness required to execute it. Drone operators are not simply flying toward the nearest target they can find. They are making real-time decisions about priority, timing, and battlefield impact. They are constantly evaluating which strike will produce the greatest effect on everything happening around it. In many ways, these operators are becoming battlefield managers. A tank commander once made many of these decisions from the front. Artillery officers coordinated others from command posts. Today, drone pilots watching live video feeds are increasingly influencing how engagements unfold minute by minute. Their choices can determine where pressure builds, where movement stops, and where opportunities emerge. For the soldiers caught inside these attacks, the experience can be especially brutal. Surviving the first explosion does not necessarily improve their situation. In many cases, the opposite happens. A vehicle is destroyed, troops dismount, they look for alternative routes. Then another strike closes that option as well. The battlefield begins shrinking around them. Every new decision carries additional risk, and every delay creates more opportunities for Ukrainian operators watching from above. The larger lesson is becoming increasingly difficult for military planners around the world to ignore. Firepower remains important, but precision alone is no longer enough. The side that identifies the right target at the right moment can generate effects far beyond the destruction of a single vehicle. Ukraine is demonstrating that target prioritization may now matter just as much as the weapon itself. And as Russian commanders continue searching for ways to overcome these tactics, another challenge is becoming impossible to ignore. Even the most basic methods of concealment are becoming harder to rely on. One of the oldest rules of warfare is becoming harder to follow on Ukraine's battlefield. For centuries, soldiers survived by staying hidden. If an enemy could not see you, they usually could not kill you. Today, that advantage is becoming less reliable, and recent combat footage offers a clear example of why. In one engagement, a Russian soldier moved through wooded terrain wearing an anti-thermal cloak. He understood the danger above him and took steps to reduce his heat signature. The garment was designed to make detection by thermal cameras more difficult, giving him a better chance of moving unseen. On paper, the idea made sense. In practice, it did not work. Ukrainian operators spotted him, tracked his movement, and eventually directed a strike against him. The equipment may have reduced his visibility, but it did not make him invisible. That incident reflects a much larger problem that is spreading across the battlefield. Russian forces have spent the last several years adapting to the growing drone threat. Units have experimented with thermal protection garments, improved camouflage techniques, concealed shelters, smaller formations, nighttime movement, and dispersed operations. These methods are not irrational. In earlier wars, many of them would have significantly increased survivability. The challenge is that they are now facing an environment where observation never fully stops. Modern drone warfare is creating a level of surveillance that few armies have experienced before. Reconnaissance aircraft circle above combat zones for hours. Thermal sensors detect heat differences that human eyes cannot see. FPV teams receive information from aerial scouts and quickly respond when movement is identified. In some sectors, multiple drone crews monitor overlapping areas at the same time. As a result, a position that appears hidden from one angle may be visible from another. This constant observation is changing how soldiers think about protection. A bunker covered with branches may blend into the landscape from ground level, yet stand out when viewed from above. A concealed fighting position may remain unnoticed during daylight, but become visible once thermal imaging equipment enters the picture. Even natural cover is becoming less dependable. Trees, bushes, and terrain features still provide protection, but they no longer guarantee safety the way they once did. Several battlefield clips illustrate this reality in striking ways. One soldier attempted to use a tree for concealment after realizing a drone was nearby. Another remained motionless beneath cover, hoping the aircraft would pass without noticing him. In a separate engagement, a man ran through forest terrain believing distance and darkness would improve his chances. Each individual made logical decisions based on traditional battlefield instincts. Each believed he had reduced his risk. Yet in every case, the operators above eventually found their target. The emotional impact of these encounters should not be underestimated. Imagine hearing a drone somewhere overhead, but not knowing exactly where it is. You cannot see the pilot. You cannot see the screen being used to track your position. You only know that someone may be watching. Every movement becomes a calculation. Every decision carries uncertainty. The battlefield starts to feel smaller because there are fewer places left to disappear. This is why some military analysts increasingly describe modern combat zones as becoming transparent. That does not mean every soldier is visible at every moment. It means the probability of remaining hidden for long periods is declining. The combination of drones, thermal cameras, digital communication, and continuous surveillance is steadily reducing the effectiveness of traditional concealment methods. What once worked for hours may now work for minutes. What once worked for minutes may now work only briefly enough to delay detection. History offers an interesting comparison. During World War II, reconnaissance aircraft played an important role, but coverage was limited by fuel, weather, and availability. During the Cold War, satellites expanded observation capabilities, yet they could not watch every location continuously. Today, inexpensive drones allow persistent monitoring across large areas for a fraction of the cost. The result is a level of battlefield awareness that previous generations could scarcely imagine. The strategic lesson is becoming increasingly clear. Success no longer depends only on who has more firepower or stronger defenses. It increasingly depends on who can locate the enemy first and act faster than the opponent can respond. Information is becoming as valuable as ammunition, and observation is becoming as important as attack. On today's battlefield, remaining unseen is no longer enough. Soldiers must assume they are being searched for at almost every moment. The side that finds its opponent first gains the initiative, gains the advantage, and often determines the outcome before the fight truly begins. Yet this war is no longer only about finding soldiers. Increasingly, it is also about hunting the eyes in the sky that make this level of awareness possible. A new kind of air war is taking shape over Ukraine, and it looks very different from the air battles most people imagine. There are no squadrons of fighter jets racing across the sky. There are no massive bombing campaigns dominating the headlines. Instead, much of the fight is taking place hundreds of feet above the ground, where small drones search for targets, gather intelligence, and increasingly hunt one another. What began as a tool for reconnaissance and strike missions is now becoming a battlefield of its own. Recent footage released by Ukrainian units highlights this growing trend. Alongside attacks on vehicles and personnel, operators have also documented successful engagements against Russian unmanned aircraft. At first glance, destroying a drone may seem less significant than destroying a tank or an artillery system. In reality, the impact can be much greater than many people realize. Modern armies rely heavily on battlefield awareness. Commanders need to know where friendly forces are located, where enemy units are moving, and which sectors are becoming vulnerable. Drones provide much of that information. They identify targets, monitor roads, observe defensive positions, and relay data to commanders in real time. In many cases, they also help artillery crews adjust their fire with remarkable precision. This means a reconnaissance drone is not simply a flying camera. It is part of a much larger combat network. When a drone identifies an enemy position, artillery can engage more accurately. When movement is detected along a supply route, commanders can react faster. When battlefield conditions change, information spreads quickly through the chain of command. Remove that drone, and the entire system becomes less effective. That is why Ukrainian operators are placing increasing emphasis on locating and destroying Russian UAVs whenever opportunities appear. One successful interception can reduce surveillance coverage across an entire area. It can delay targeting information. It can interrupt artillery correction. It can force commanders to make decisions with less accurate intelligence. The loss of a single aircraft may seem small, but the effects can spread far beyond the immediate engagement. This is creating what many analysts now describe as a struggle for low-altitude air superiority. For most of modern military history, air superiority meant controlling the skies with fighter aircraft. During conflicts such as the Gulf War, NATO aircraft dominated large sections of airspace and prevented enemy aviation from operating effectively. That advantage often shaped the entire battlefield. Today, a similar competition is developing much closer to the ground. The difference is cost. A modern fighter jet may cost tens of millions of dollars. Some advanced aircraft cost well over $100 million before maintenance and support expenses are included. Many reconnaissance drones operating in Ukraine cost only a tiny fraction of that amount. Yet despite their low price, they are influencing battlefield decisions every day. This shift is changing how military power is measured. In previous decades, analysts often focused on tank numbers, aircraft inventories, and missile stockpiles. Those factors still matter, but Ukraine has demonstrated that large fleets of inexpensive unmanned systems can also shape combat outcomes. A military that controls the airspace below 1,000 feet gains significant advantages in observation, targeting, and operational awareness. The emotional reality behind this transformation is often invisible. Many soldiers never see the aircraft that ultimately influences their fate. A drone may identify their position hours before artillery arrives. Another may track vehicle movement and pass information to nearby units. A third may observe an assault route and warn defenders before an attack begins. The individual on the ground may never know exactly when he was detected or how information traveled through the network. Yet those unseen moments increasingly determine what happens next. This is one reason military planners around the world are studying Ukraine so closely. The lessons extend beyond Eastern Europe. Armies in North America, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East are all examining how unmanned systems are reshaping surveillance, targeting, and battlefield control. The question is no longer whether drones matter. The question is how many are needed and how they should be integrated into future force structures. The strategic lesson is becoming difficult to ignore. Future military power may depend not only on advanced aircraft and sophisticated weapons, but also on the ability to deploy, sustain, and protect large numbers of drones operating every day across contested battlefields. The side that controls this invisible layer of the war gains an advantage that can influence everything happening below. But perhaps the most revealing evidence of this transformation is not found in tanks or aircraft. It is found in something far more basic. Perhaps the clearest sign that warfare is changing can be found in one simple battlefield moment. A Russian soldier was moving toward a frontline position carrying food for fellow troops. He was not driving a tank. He was not operating artillery. He was not leading an assault. He carried only a backpack. Yet he became a target and was struck before completing his mission. That incident matters because it reveals how deeply drone warfare is reaching into military operations. For most of modern history, logistics worked behind the scenes. Ammunition, fuel, food, and equipment moved through support networks that rarely attracted the same attention as combat units. Today, those support networks are increasingly becoming the battlefield itself. The Russian convoy that moved toward Ukrainian positions on April 18th never reached its objective. But the larger story was never about a single failed assault. What we have seen across this battlefield is a growing effort to attack the systems that keep an army functioning. From movement and reconnaissance to resupply and reinforcement, Ukrainian drone units are placing constant pressure on capabilities Russia depends on every day. This is no longer just a technology story. It is a glimpse into how military power may be changing. For decades, strength was measured through tanks, artillery, aircraft, and manpower. Ukraine is showing a different possibility. Thousands.
And that was Ukraine. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.